Welcome to our latest update on the ongoing war in Ukraine from the War Insider. The 350th day of the war has begun. Main news on the morning of February 9th, President Zelensky is in the UK and France. New aid packages for Ukraine, including fighter jets, Ukrainian combat drone for the destruction of Iranian-Russian drones Shahed. Russian and Chinese forces will conduct joint exercises in Africa. However, first, a map of military operations and the situation on the front lines. On the border with Belarus, Russian military continue to be on Belarusian territory. However, there are no signs of the formation of attacking groups. On the Spatovo direction, positional battles in Kazimivka continue. Hostile attacks from occupied Crimea are proceeding at a high pace, but Ukrainian defenders are firmly holding the defensive line, and there have been no changes to the map. The Bakhmut direction, Russian forces entered the northernmost part of the city a couple of days ago. Pressure on the city is now coming from three directions. Ukrainian paratroopers not only repulsed enemy attacks, but also pushed him back a little. On the screen, you can see how the 45th Artillery Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces is destroying the enemy in the Solidar area. The Ukrainian artillery is destroying the 2S-19 Stress self-propelled howitzer. Avdiivsky section without significant changes. The Russian army throws reserves to capture the center of Mariinka, but Ukrainian military heroes do everything to prevent the enemy from advancing. Kharkiv, Kherson and Zaporozhye directions unchanged. The terror country Russia continues to strike cities and villages. As a result of yesterday's shelling, there are casualties. After the strike on the center of Kherson, an elderly local resident died, who was caught in the street by the shooting. A children's rehabilitation center was affected. According to preliminary data, one person was injured in a border settlement in the Chernihiv region, and three were under the rubble of a building. Information on losses among the local population and destruction is being clarified. The Ukrainian defenders have repelled attacks in 19 inhabited areas throughout Ukraine. The Ukrainian military carried out 6 attacks on enemy anti-aircraft systems and 2 weapons depots. The Defense Forces Aviation carried out 21 strikes on areas where the enemy was deployed and their military equipment, according to the Ukrainian military headquarters. 3 more strikes were made on enemy anti-aircraft positions. The artillery and rocket forces destroyed 2 enemy control points, 3 concentrations of enemy forces, 3 anti-aircraft positions, 2 weapons depots, and a fuel and lubricant base. Zelensky visited the UK and met with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and King Charles I. Zelensky's speech to the British Parliament was heard standing. This meeting was marked by major announcements of military support. Britain begins to train Ukrainian military pilots. Also, Rishi Sunak stated that British tanks Challenger 2 will arrive in Ukraine in March. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom confirmed that deliveries of combat aircraft are already part of the negotiations. By the way, the US has also started talking about transferring fighters to Ukraine. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that the list of military supplies to Ukraine is changing. The US wants Ukraine to return lost territories. After visiting the United Kingdom, Zelensky arrived in France, where he met with Olaf Scholz and Emmanuel Macron. New announcements of heavy weapon deliveries to Ukraine for victory over the occupiers are expected. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation continues to reform the army, preparing for a new offensive and creating conditions for long-term operations in Ukraine, according to the War Research Institute. Meanwhile, the Russian military command may rush to start a large-scale offensive operation to capture the Donetsk region within unrealistic timelines and probably without sufficient combat power. It is reported that Russian officials appear to be investing in rail infrastructure to increase the efficiency of military logistics. Russian and Chinese forces will hold joint exercises in Africa from February 16 to 26. According to South African news, which notes that previously the authorities of South Africa declined joint exercises with the United States. Financial Times writes that Russia is now trying to strengthen its influence in poor African countries in order to effectively open up a second front in opposition to the West. One of the factors of success for the Russians in African countries is the poor relationship with France and frequent coups, notes the publication. Ukrainian engineers have constructed a combat drone to destroy Russian Iranian-Russian Shahed. This task is performed by the Spire drone. It has already undergone initial tests, and soon these attack quadcopters will be handed over to pilots-operators for protecting infrastructure objects throughout Ukraine. In sufficient numbers, these FPV drones can enhance the Ukrainian air defense. Germany has allocated a new package of military aid, announced the head of the Presidential Office of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak. The package includes 2 Gepard anti-aircraft installations and 6,000 rounds of ammunition for them, 5 vehicles for border guards, 6 trucks with a crane loading system, 29 electric generators and mobile antenna systems, and tonight, a column of German equipment with Leopard tanks was seen in the Dresden area moving towards Poland. Additionally, the German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius announced that by the end of the month Ukraine will receive additional guided missiles, 5 Cheetah anti-aircraft installations, and 5 more Badger engineering tanks. The Swedish parliament has approved military aid to Ukraine worth more than $400 million. Sweden will provide Ukraine with anti-tank weapons, demining equipment, the Robot 57 light anti-tank weapon, and Swedish infantry combat vehicles CV-90. Portugal plans to transfer 3 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine next month, according to Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Costa. We are now implementing a plan for the restoration and maintenance of the Leopard 2 tanks, and according to the plan, we can send 3 tanks in March, Costa said to the parliament. Putin is dragging his feet in the war against Ukraine, thinking that time is on his side, says Bloomberg, citing Estonian intelligence. Putin is dragging his feet, believing that Ukraine and the West will tire out before Russia, says the annual report of the Estonian Foreign Intelligence Service. The president of the Russian Federation also believes that he can use bombs to force Ukraine to sit down for talks. Meanwhile, Putin himself shows no signs of compromise and may use tools of propaganda imperialism. An analysis of the Russian elite, who believe that Putin has gone mad, is also conducted, but they do not dare to take a real step towards change. It is noted that in post-Putin Russia, there will be no Democrats, and that after Putin's rule, Prigozhin and Kadyrov will compete for power. This is all the news for today. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. We'll be back with more updates and information tomorrow. Thanks for watching.